Yeah, that's
Call to order this regular session meeting of the Park City School District on December 14th at 4 p.m. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Move to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda that includes regular session minutes of November 16th, 2021, closed minutes of November 16th, 2021, accounts payable registers of November 8th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 18th, 19th, 22nd, 23rd, December 1st, 2nd, 6th, and December 7th of 2021. Travel request, Ecker Hill Middle School, Park City High School, and Parley's Park Elementary School Land Trust Plan revision, new course proposals, contract approvals, personnel information, November expenses and revenues.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second. Is there any discussion?
No.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. We will move on to our employee groups. PCA, Ms. Morgan, would you like to join us?
Sure. I'm going to pull my mask down. Good evening. Happy holidays to everyone. I'm Mary Morgan, as you know, co-president of PCA. Jake Job and I would like to especially thank Tracy Evans, Dr. Sorensen, and Dr. Gilday for joining us on Zoom yesterday and continuing to meet with us monthly. We greatly appreciate our district office admin as well as our board members for always including us in the conversations, and we value your time with us. An open enrollment and early retirement / resignation notice was sent out to all staff this week. Equities training slides were just approved in a recent Utah State Board of Education meeting. PCA will work with district admin to ensure that teachers know what the state expectations are. Future calendar discussions have begun. PCA would like to ask the district and the board to please consider including Yom Kippur in upcoming years. Our Jewish population has grown tremendously just since March of 2020, with an increase of nearly 100% in membership. Yom Kippur is a high holiday, thus causing students and teachers to take that day off. Since we are a district of inclusion and embrace diversity, adding Yom Kippur to our calendar would be a step forward that has needed to happen for many years. Conversations continue with PCA and district admin in regards to our sub shortage, LLP for all licensed professionals, the upcoming additions to our schools, the bullying policy, as well as staying consistent as much as possible across the district between our buildings. Again, we thank you for the opportunity to have open and honest conversations that are meaningful and goal-oriented. Thank you.
I just want to take a minute and just thank you and Jake so much again for that.
No,
like working
appreciate
together with each other feels really great. So
Yes,
thank you.
and with you guys too. Thank you very much.
All right, Emily, would you like to talk on behalf of the student council?
Sure. So this month we started our yearly fundraiser. We chose the Christmas Box. It's an organization for children of all ages, from infants to 18 years old, to find sanctuary for homes of domestic abuse. If they're removed from their homes, they have shelter down in Salt Lake. I know they have one of the programs down there. More specifically, the Christmas Box, it means that they receive our hand-me-downs, donations, that kind of thing. We came up with a few ways to fundraise. We had a fundraising night at Cafe Zupas on the 8th. We had just over probably 75 to 100 people go. They are donating 75% of those earnings to us. We don't have quite that number yet, we will soon. We also had a faculty versus student basketball game last night. We don't have how much we raised for that one quite yet, but we will. We are doing candygrams also, I believe, through the end of this week. That's just a way for students to have a way to, they'll purchase a candygram, send it to a friend, do something lighthearted, to then put all those the profit into donating for the Christmas box. We also had the minor minute this morning, which again, sorry, I don't have the stats for that quite yet. We had student council members represent each hallway, and we raised money for, I think, about either 1 to 8 minutes, whatever. I don't know exactly how much that time was, but we went and we asked people to donate that way too. We have our talent show on the 17th. I believe there's around 10 acts. We also introduced the seniors with their corresponding sports, so a chance to recognize the winter senior sports as well. And I believe that is all I have.
Perfect, thank you. And I think we're gonna make sure that there's a link to the fundraiser in the newsletter that the board puts out, so that if other community members would like to donate to that as well. So, perfect. All right, who would like to be in the hot seat next? Mr. Tanner, you want up?
Yes. Good afternoon. This is the operations report for the 14th of December 21. Just for some situational awareness for COVID. We're still in a high transmission index for the county. Numbers are fluctuating quite a bit, as you probably know. Positivity rates at 6.9% on the last count, which is still pretty high, but we are in incidence decline. And that decline is reflected in our school numbers. Our 14-day case counts are way down. Our highest is 5 at the high school. A total of 12 across the district right now, 14-day backlog. The last meeting was 72, so that's a significant drop. No active mask mandates at all in the district right now. The county mask mandate is set to sunset on the 31st of December. I have not heard that it's going to be updated. So with that in mind,
I think they're doing it tonight or tomorrow night.
Oh.
It's on the agenda tomorrow night.
To reinstitute.
Whether they do it or not.
Oh, I see. Either way, if it does not get updated, we're going to pivot to a test to stay scenario where we're looking at if our schools go over 30 in any one of our schools, we go to a test to stay. So our health attend metrics will shift along with that emphasis and now be, instead of reflecting the 2% trigger, or reflect 30 people at any given school. And the graph will reflect, instead of the percentages by school, the number of overall cases by school historically. Just to remind the public that we have layered mitigation strategies in place, and we're locked and loaded in the event that we have a school that has an outbreak to put in some really advanced protocols. Testing continues at on school days from 7:15 to 9:15 at Eccles, and then Test Utah has been augmenting that for the general public from 10 till 7 p.m. in the high school lot on Wednesdays. The district is proposing tonight to you a test to return voluntary testing program. We'll hear more about that in the upcoming discussions. And of course, our vaccinations are available for 5 to 11-year-olds throughout the county, and a nice job on the uptake on it. From a buildings and grounds perspective, we're continuing our talks with a few vendors on additional UV sanitation towers with that local company that I talked about. Preparation for Sundance is well underway. We've had a couple meetings with that group the last couple days. And I will be participating in the Emergency Operations Center that the police department puts up with all the interagencies to ensure that we have security at the event. As you may have heard the hammer swinging here, the district office, we're developing an office suite down there. I think it's 6 office spaces, plus are relocating our server room from the high school over here to the district office due to the construction that we're anticipating coming up. Pretty big project. All of our preventative maintenance requirements have been placed into our tracking mechanism of school due. We could then use those inputs to produce an annual capital outlay budget for preventative maintenance. We're in our capital outlay, capital budgeting season right now. The process is underway, and we're on track to complete in line with our target in mid-January. We have Mocha here tonight to update us on the master facility plan, and great job with the buildings and grounds and transportation teams on managing for snowfall that we managed. It looks like we'll be tested again today. Transportation, we're at a critical level of manning. we haven't been able to get people in the door. Our office staff has been working really hard, and most days are out driving instead of attending to the things they have to do in the office. All of our extracurricular transportation requirements are outsourced. We've also looked at some solutions to that to include, I asked Rich to prepare some contingency planning that if we were down 2 drivers, 5 drivers, 10 drivers, how would we handle that in case we get hit with the COVID outbreak in transportation. But right now, we're limping along. We got a couple of long-term sicks that are coming back to help us out, so we're hoping that we enter the first of the year with some decent numbers there. Rich is working with his team to develop a procedures manual, and it's on time to meet its 1 January release goal. And it's under committee review right now with several of the drivers. COVID protocol still remains in our buses. We've got 2 per seat, masks recommended, fogging is going on between all the runs, and no space available transportation right now until we're clear on COVID, or at least our transmission level lowers in the county. We do have an RFP out in the marketplace right now for UV sanitation on the buses, which would allow us to flip a switch instead of fogging them, and it would kill the virus that's residual on the bus. And that's fully funded through ARP funds, federal ARP funds. We did meet with the Sundance team just this afternoon to discuss ways to mitigate the transportation problem that we had in front of the high school where the water main broke last year. We reviewed a lot of the engineering that went on there and came up with a solution that we're going to protect that site with just some metal plating that we're going to lay over the top of that pipe to distribute the weight. The engineers assure us that the site is stressed to hold the traffic that's going over it, but clearly something didn't work last year, so we're taking an extra preventative step to make sure we don't end up with a water crisis in the middle of Sundance affecting the school. But again, great job with Rich and his team for getting our kids to school on time with the snowfalls. Child nutrition is also having staffing issues. John just had a couple people quit on him with no notice. He's down 3 right now. We're trying to get folks in the door, but right now overtime is being used to hopefully shore that up for a while. And he's still experiencing supply chain issues in food distribution where he's having to get a little more creative with the menus. Human Resources, Shad's doing what he can to support all the department heads in filling open positions, and we're working with the departments that provide positions to give employees who want more hours the opportunity, which is decreasing the number of positions that are not filled. And we're also looking at a plan to start raising our sub rates for our drivers to attract more folks to the door. On the security front, we had the security committee met about a month ago, and out of that security committee came some recommendations from local law enforcement on some initiatives they recommended. So we put together a staff survey, anonymous, so our staff can participate, feel comfortable with the responses, and then we'll release that shortly after the first of the year to gauge whether we're interested in those initiatives. Also, I attended a full-day FEMA training at the Park City Police Department that talks about site protection through observation. It's basically techniques on picking out bad guys out of crowds and stuff like that. So we're better prepared for football games and events. So that's all I have for you tonight, unless you have any questions.
I do a quick follow too.
Go ahead. Oh, so just a question on the bus situation. Are we leaving any kids out since we're at max capacity? Like, are there any kids that want to ride the bus that we just can't accommodate?
There's people, you know, we're transporting everyone who are obligated to transport according to the state rules.
Okay.
There are people, though, who want to get in the buses that aren't getting in the buses. Not a lot that we typically would accommodate through space available transportation. And we just haven't flipped that switch yet, just because we're in high transmission index with COVID right now. So I guess if the board direction is to open that back up, I'll do that. But right now, I'm sitting tight until I hear more from you guys.
Yeah, that was one, I don't know, and I don't know if this is the right spot. First, thanks, because there's a million things you're managing. Doing great. The dashboard.
Yeah.
Is there clarity around the dashboard and what's being posted? And then if there's this test to stay thing, how will that impact the dashboard? And will all tests, you know, because I know there's a lot of these spikes that are happening, which tests will go or results will be included on that stuff?
Yeah, you know, as much, you know, as we've had some misunderstanding of what tests count, what tests don't, I think we're wired to the state and county standard, and I'm really hesitant to move off of that standard.
Okay.
And that I still want to have clear positives. To get around that, though, we will give our folks some visibility on that. Say, we'll have a column that says positive and suspected cases, and then just have
Okay.
the positive cases that are impacting the triggers for
Okay.
tests to stay.
So there'll be a clear distinction that,
Yes.
so someone could look and say, we have this many maybe test positive with the swipe or whatever, but these are the ones that count for
Right.
county,
Exactly.
state. That, okay.
Yeah, and
That
and
is
I
the
think that's the
place I
smart
saw
way to go,
confusion.
just because
Yeah.
we went through so much
Confusion, yeah.
confusion with it, so I think that's where we're headed.
No, that's great.
Matt's he's been a little slow, our health attend person. You know, he's basically volunteering for us, really doing a great job. He's living in the trenches with us, but he's had his software developer out with COVID himself.
Oh.
So that's slowed us down quite a bit, making some adjustments, which we thought
Okay.
we would have had already. So he's on it. But we are pivoting to the first of the year
Right.
to help the tender reflect the tests to stay versus the 2% mask mandate if the county turns that off.
And last year, I remember somebody was home from school, that was when we shut down, right, after Christmas? So I
Yeah,
remember, so
yeah.
like we're expecting again another
Yeah, I mean, that's
sort of rush
typically,
post-holidays.
yeah, post-holiday, typically
Yeah.
2 weeks after, that's what we've been seeing is, you know, for all the Thanksgiving, for Halloween, for all
Yeah,
that stuff.
yeah.
That's where we're anticipating a spike.
Mhm.
So that's where the test return voluntary initiative is in place to help us, you know, have folks who don't feel comfortable going to a doctor who's getting ready at
Right.
either Ecker or at high school.
Great. Yeah,
Do you know roughly how many kids want to ride the bus in camp right
yeah,
now?
Yeah.
You know, I don't. I can ask Rich to survey that. I know that, yeah, I mean, that's an issue for us every year, right? That we do have seats, but we're not letting people on. And we've let people on based upon a first come, first served basis. And that's, we haven't received a lot of negative feedback this year. I think people are understanding of where we're at. But I can certainly try to gauge that to see if Rich has a metric and see how many people that want to ride are getting rides. Another thing though too is that we are just consolidating one of our bus routes. We got rid of Route 12 and you know, if we don't have the space available, people on, it gives us those opportunities. We can push 2 routes together if we lose another driver or required to do it, you know, for whatever reason. So, but I will ask a question to Rich and let you guys know. And we'll be aggressive about trying to get people back on the bus. It's not, you know, it's nothing other than student safety that we're concerned with. And we'll get those folks who can.
And are masks required on buses?
They're not required, they're highly recommended, just
Okay.
like, you know, the schools.
Are we going to have an increased ask on the budget this year for, you know, a lot of these spots that continually come up, so substitutes, bus drivers, you know,
Joe
Food
shaking your
services.
head, yes.
That is likely.
Yeah. You know, but I don't think it's necessarily a big budget change for us. It's just that we can't get people in the door from those. I mean, if the answer is more money, you know, that might be, you know, if we're paying an X, we're paying X plus 20% or 30% to come in the door. Yeah, we'll ask for more for that, but I don't know where we're at yet.
do we know, like, if we've done any work, maybe this is a question for Dr. Sorensen, but like, you know, around what we could do to become more attractive in terms of, like, is it benefits that would get people to come in and stay? Is it, I mean, I think it's worth looking at, especially because there's going to be a big uptick in cost
Yeah.
this year, so we may as well be as efficient as possible
Yeah, you know,
before we get to budget season.
I think it just depends on the person, right? Some people want more cash in hand, some people want the benefits. It just depends who we're talking to, you know. But I suspect it's more than money. That's the problem. I suspect that it's just the labor shortage. I suspect people don't want to be in schools in COVID environments. I think people, with some of the abuse that bus drivers take, that they don't want to get involved. I think it's the change of our community, that we had a workforce that would take some of those lower paying jobs, and now we don't anymore. So you're competing with the valley for replacements, and people may not be able to drive up here for the job, the money that we can pay. So I think it's all of those, but I do think that we should probably put a significant bump in there to attract people.
That's at least worth it, just like we do every year, right? We've got to do a little bit of a review, a little bit of a market study. I think one of the things we're running into now is those things that used to be minimum wage jobs around the area really aren't. most things are going up to $15, and even, I think Smith's had a shelving or stocking roll for, I don't even remember what it was. It was a third shift, so it wasn't an ideal time necessarily, but it was 24, 26,
Yeah.
$30 an hour. I mean, so, some of the things that used to be, we were a better deal than in the Starbucks, and all of a sudden Starbucks is the better deal. So we're gonna have to look at just, so we were always looking before at our market. So, what are other districts paying bus drivers? What are other districts paying teacher aides? Now we have to look kind of outside the industry as well, and just see what are entry-level positions, what are mid-range positions, what are skilled positions paying.
We have housing challenges too, right?
It wasn't too long ago that schools could afford to pay a little bit less because people like the stability of the school district, they like the hours, like the schedules, and I think that Delta's operating pretty quick right now. So,
So we will bring all of that data to you as we have it in the budget process, and then we'll just review that over the course of the second half of the year, and then in June, we of course make that determination.
I think that's gonna be the biggest challenge, right?
Yeah.
And it is nationally, it's not
Yeah.
just a local issue.
okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You guys look so nice in your holiday sweaters. Finally, somebody will dress up with me. For the teaching and learning report tonight, there are several things that I really want to make sure that the board's aware of. If you take a look at tonight's consent agenda, there are a number of new courses that are proposed and proposed for your approval. Most of those courses come from our career and technology education programming. They are intended to create a pathway that allows students to be able to participate in at least 3 courses and earn a certification. I'm particularly excited about some aerial courses that are there. There's a drone course that's proposed and actually a pilot course. So we have a number of students that have expressed interest in that pathway and happen to have a teacher who has the right credentialing and experience. And so we're hoping that as you review those, you'll see great value in putting those forward. Our deadline for courses for each school year is December 1st, so that each of those can be placed on the consent agenda, reviewed by the board, and approved. So you may have a few that came right at the end and would be on January's consent agenda. Also on the agenda tonight, you'll see some adjustments to 2 of our school land trust and TSSA plans. As you're aware, throughout the year, school leaders will work with their school community council and make adjustments to the plan. In particular, some of these adjustments are due to an increase in TSSA budgets that we received this year. I wanted to provide the board with a follow-up regarding our Practice e-learning day, which was held on Wednesday the 24th, right before we went to Thanksgiving break. During that day, each of the schools took some time to review our contingency learning plan, or our ICP. They also worked with their students to make sure they could still log into Canvas and Seesaw, particularly in our younger grades, in the event that there were some kind of an emergency or a school closure. We collected feedback from our site principals, from our ed tech coaches and teachers, and we found things that were not so surprising to us. One thing that we found is that our littlest or youngest students still struggle to be fully engaged in an online environment, and we just know that if we were to have an emergency and close, that would be a challenge for us, and so we need to consider other ways to engage those students if we had to be in a full-time remote setting. We're going to continue to adjust, to train and practice so that if we do need to move to an emergency plan, that the learning contingency is smooth. We'd like to get to the point that we could just easily transition if we needed to do a snow day. Although living here in Park City, we're typically prepared for these large storms and can hold school anyway. We will have a repeat e-learning experience in March, right before spring break. I'm happy to report one of my favorite quotes from the whole day was, "We should do this every month so that people can get better." That's what we want. So, the first week of December, Utah School Board released our school dashboards, and they provide us a look into how our students are progressing with respect to state's accountability rules around achievement. We've been looking at those preliminary student data for quite some time and waiting for USBE to provide us a little better direction regarding how to interpret the data given COVID-19 impacts. The state's been very clear that comparing data across schools, across school years, or across student groups is going to be problematic this year because there's a break in the data. So you'll notice that when you look at the dashboard, most schools have what looks like almost an utter failure because we all started kind of back at the starting line again. So we do know that both nationally and statewide, the educational impacts of COVID were very significant, and there are some patterns in our data that we anticipated. But there are some also very positive things that we had hoped and that we achieved because we put some things in place. There's some great examples of that that'll be in our upcoming newsletter, but I do want to tell you that we saw things like a 37% gain for English learners school-wide at Trailside Elementary School. We saw a 5% increase in our math scores and a rise in our ELA scores both at the junior high and high school. So there are some positive things there to see. Nonetheless, there are some patterns in our data over time that need to be called to attention and need to be addressed. Probably the most pressing of which is that our English learners continue to have low growth and proficiency rates compared to other student groups. Our teaching and learning team has created our Reach the Summit strategic plan that's been designed to address these concerns as we shift towards more personalized, competency-based approach to learning. I'm looking forward to sharing more about that as we move into the next school year. I want to highlight a couple of great things. One strength in our data from the 2021 school year was really in our students who have IEPs. In fact, USBE recognized and shared Park City School District data with all special education directors as an example of what stability and growth looks like during the pandemic. So we're proud of that. I want to take the opportunity then to recognize the work of our special education director, Jacqueline Knapp, and her team. She has a very dedicated team. In the past year, they've updated the Park City School District Special Education Policy and Procedure Manual and many of our processes and procedures to ensure that we're compliant and that we are aware of the most recent rules and regulations. Because as you know, special education changes frequently. We appreciate the work they do and the fantastic special education educators, aides, and especially our students. In closing, I'd like to highlight Treasure Mountain Junior High School administration and staff. Just this last week, they completed their accreditation review, which takes a tremendous amount of work and energy to be prepared for. And they did it very well. The reviews that are done are intense. They're a little challenged right now because they're all still they're over Zoom because of COVID. But they really did a nice job. So congratulations to them on a job well done. We're looking forward to receiving their final accreditation review. So, do you have any questions for me this evening?
Do we have any info that you can share, that you can email us on the English language learners and what the plan is there?
On the what?
On the English language
Oh,
learners?
English, yes,
Yeah.
of course, yeah. I can tell you one thing that we did last year as an inquiry or wondering was, one of the things that I've had success with in other districts, and I know is part of the research around English language learners, is attention to teaching specific targeted, what they call ELD standards. And so last year we decided that we would run a pilot over at Trailside. And during the intervention time that occurs school-wide, we took those English learners and gave them focused ELD targeted learning. And that's where we saw that 37% increase. So our goal was to get some of those kinks worked out and pilot that piece, and our hope is to push that into all schools next year.
So ESY last summer was phenomenal, and it was extended. Did you see, and I knew I heard it was put in place because of the slide between SPED and some of the, are you seeing any data from ESY that is contributing to? 'Cause I
Yeah,
sure
so
saw it.
we've not been able to break it down by every single student
Yeah.
because many of those students are no longer in the district.
Okay.
that actually participated over the summer. So that's perplexing to me. We're looking into why were they here for the summer and then left in the fall. But that may be due to people moving back to areas where their kids could be enrolled in school again. We do know that those students who participated in the summer program who have IEPs saw significant gains. And we do also know that students who participated remotely last year didn't have a decline in their scores. So we're still going through the data. I've created a summary that I'm happy to share with you if you'd like to do a workshop, maybe at a later date in January.
Just one comment, because I'm a treasurer. You saw me that day, but
Yeah,
times
yeah.
But anyway, phenomenal school. I was over there today, had lunch in the cafeteria, and just the staff, the kids, they all love being there. They're all happy. It's just a really great experience over there. So it's a wonderful school.
It is really
And we've got the 180 data points on their indicators on their accreditation plan. We'll show that as well. Their website was beautiful.
Yeah, it was really
Oh,
fun.
nice.
It's a great job.
Cool.
Thank you. Superintendent?
All right, well, Friday, December 17th is National Ugly Sweater Day, and it looks like we are in, full force attack with that. A little early on that.
We're going for the week. We're going for the whole week.
We do want to extend a thank you to our entire Park City community for their support of the November 2021 bond election. With the passing of the bond, the design build teams have been working diligently on fine-tuning their proposals for additions to Park City High School, Ecker Hill Middle School, and each of the 4 elementary schools. By the end of January 2022, schematic drawings will be well underway with the goal of pre-bid for long lead items this spring and first phase construction beginning during the summer of 2022. Ideally, our timeline will have Park City School District implementing a secondary grade realignment for a 6-8 middle school experience and a 9-12 high school experience in August of 2024. This exciting work will galvanize our educators, our staff, and our community in the co-creation of our school facilities to meet the needs of our next generation learners. So it's something that can really get our whole community excited about the future of what our programming can really be. To hear the latest updates and news and information from the school district, please join us on January 12th at Ecker Hill Middle School from 7 to 8 p.m. for a State of the District address to hear more about the master plan, academic progress, and updates from the district. Thank you for continuing your interest, engagement, and support of these important projects that pave the way for our community and student success. When we look at our overall learning community, we see educators and staff who put people and relationships first, who foster trust and connection within and outside of the organization, and a local board of education that empowers people with resources and support in an effort to reach our aspirational vision and mission. This team effort yields strong outcomes for our learners and is a core value that is evident to all who work throughout the organization. Our work as a district is to create and support the conditions for student and staff success. We learn and grow together as an organization as we inspire all learners to actively participate and engage in their own learning. As we approach the winter vacation of 2021, I wish each of our staff members, students, and families a safe and healthy 2-week break. We've reached the end of the 2021 year and will return back to school on January 3rd, 2022 for the second half of the school year. Please look for more information from your school site on the volunteer.
All right, move on to master planning. Dave, would you like to join us?
Sure. Okay.
Look at that screen share up there, oh boy. The 3 screens up there, that's a lot.
That's a crazy screen.
That's yours.
Sorry.
Is that mine or yours?
That's fine.
Oh, it did.
Okay.
Is this conference room A, B?
Yes.
It did.
so I'll wait for you. Are you gonna share?
I'm off, no, I'm off.
So you need to do that. There we go. Okay, let me close this. Sorry. Okay. Well, we had I think, a very successful day yesterday in the morning when we had the architects go over the 6 different projects and kind of review where they were. I'm not going to go over their presentations, but I am going to give you kind of an update on where we are, and I'm going to use a lot of slides that you've seen before, so we'll go back over the priorities that you set, and then we'll talk about each campus or each school. So starting off, the board priorities, I wanted to review those. So move 9th grade into the high school and provide for CTE. As you saw yesterday, that is underway. We've got a nice new addition that they have been working very hard on, and I think that MHTN has that well under control, and I think that will be accomplished. Combined grades 6th, 7th, and 8th at Ecker Hill for middle schools, I should say. That is also underway, and I think you saw again a very nice design where they have been working very diligently to try to make sure they've accommodated all of the parking as well as making sure they've got the school facilities coming together and they're paying attention to how things go together internally. Provide the additional pre-K kindergarten classrooms at every elementary school with wraparound services at the 2 sites, Jeremy and McPolin. Again, that is being put together by DCBO, and again, I think those designs are coming along well. We met with them again this morning and had a very good discussion with both design teams. Minimize disruptions to the student activities. This is part of the contractor's responsibilities. They all understand that they will be, we've done a lot of schools and additions to schools where there are students present, so I'm sure they'll be working with that. Efficiency, maintain the operational use of the facility. They understand they'll be doing that. Reduce impacts on the school and reuse as much of the existing building as possible. I think all of the additions have recognized and are working diligently to use as much of the existing building as possible so that we will get maximum efficiency out of that use. In fact, I really appreciate what MHTN did at Ecker Hill, where they didn't just shave off the building right at the edge, but they're actually holding the building a little bit away and then creating a connector. So I think they're trying to be very, very conscientious about that. Construction duration, we will go over that tonight as we talk about each of the facilities, but they are, just as superintendent said, they are all planning to be done in 2024. And there are actually some phases of the elementary schools that will be done in 2023, and we'll talk a little bit about that. From an energy efficiency standpoint, we have challenged each of the teams to try to hit a energy utilization index, or an EUI, of 35, which means that they're driving the cost of energy and the cost to run those buildings down about as low as they can. One of the concerns that we have, while that is the goal and that is the objective, we don't want to push so far that we put you on the bleeding edge, so to speak, of technology. And so we're evaluating that, and it's kind of a balancing game. But right now, all the schools have the ability to hit that 35. In fact, some of the elementaries will be as low as 32. But we're evaluating the technology that will be used, because we don't want to put the school district into a situation where you've got some existing mechanical equipment that the maintenance personnel need to learn on, and then you've got really high-tech stuff that they are going to have to be taught on in multiple different types of facilities. So we're trying to figure out how to do that so there's a common ability amongst your maintenance staff. Green building materials. Right now, all of the designs are approaching the end of schematic design. And schematic design is really where we kind of make the big moves. We lay out the space, we make sure that the square footage is about right, we get a feel for the way the buildings are going to look. We don't really get into the materials at this point. Once we go into design development, then we'll start talking about flooring materials, wall materials, ceiling materials, different exterior materials. And so that's when we'll start getting into the green building materials and start to nail that.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Absolutely.
Just because of the supply chain being slow lately,
Mhm.
then I would think that materials would need to be ordered sooner rather than later. So when do you think you'll get to the point, because if you've got to have those materials ready to
Right.
order soon?
So I think the real advantage, when we made the decision as a group to go with design build and bring the contractor on early, they're watching them. We've been negotiating their contracts, and every one of them, or each one of them, I should say, are very, very concerned and very conscientious about watching the supply chain. And they've even gone so far as to talk about the fact they may have to order things early and put it in the warehouse. And so they're watching it. I don't know exactly when they'll need to start ordering these, but they're working with the architects. The architects under design build work for the contractor. And so the contractor has the responsibility to deliver the buildings on time. And so he's watching the supply chain and he's watching the development of the design. And he's asking the architects to make sure that they're doing things in an order that he can then make those purchases. So I think it's a good process that we've got. It's a great question. And then the LEED certification, again, the minimum of silver, we're not going to certify, we're not going to submit to them because of the cost associated, but they're all working with materials and designs that will get us to a minimum of LEED silver. As we go to an EUI, my guess is we'll exceed silver, just because of the energy savings alone.
Are we allowed to say that if we're not paying for the certification?
Yeah.
It's kind of a common terminology right now that you'll hit silver, bronze, or platinum. So you can say it. You can't put a medallion in your building. You
Right.
can't say that it's a LEED silver building. You can say that it's an energy efficient building,
Okay.
and you can say that it meets the criteria for certain
Okay,
things.
cool.
Okay, so let's jump into the different facilities. You've seen this slide before. This is the current layout for the high school. And then, as you know, during our discussions about how to move forward, we talked about the design of that. We talked about the cost of construction. We have not included the green enhancements, and I'll just say that, and it shows up in each one of these, but we have eliminated the green enhancements. Furniture, or FF&E, architect's fees, and the owner's costs are all there. And they are accommodating the priorities as listed. So this is the update. So the design builder contract, we're trying to get those contracts finalized and signed just as quickly as we can. They're reviewing them, we're reviewing them, and we'd like to see that done before everybody disappears for Christmas. The design builder's architect has held multiple meetings with the high school and stakeholders in all of the projects. You'll see that as consistent. They've been meeting with teachers and they've been meeting with different groups. The design builders, architects provide programming services on moving the 9th grade over to the high school. So we've gotten through the programming process. We are in the process of minimizing the disruptions. The planning for that is taking place. And then I mentioned the EUI of 35 or lower.
Can I ask a quick question there?
Sure.
Thanks. Where you say incorporating green enhancements, EUI of 35 or lower, and the four on the slide with the costs, and there weren't green enhancements included in that, correct?
Yeah, what we're
So
doing is
when
we're
will
using,
we-
when I talk about the green enhancements, if we go back here to this one, it's really the green building materials. So
Okay.
I should have written that.
Yeah.
So that,
Well, no,
good
I'm
catch.
not,
No, that's-
I'm not criticizing
Yeah.
the writing, I'm just asking the
Yeah, we're not
question.
doing enhancements, we're doing the green materials, so you're absolutely correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, got it.
Yeah, so I'll
Okay.
correct that.
Perfect.
Well, since she's in charge of you, can I just add on to it? Do we have any soil issues with
We do
this?
have soil issues
Here?
here,
Okay.
and we're working around those as best as we can.
What's the deal? Like, so when you said.
So from what I understand is when the work was done previously, they didn't remove the soils from the site,
Okay,
and they kind of piled them back in the back area
Oh, nice.
behind things. And they've capped it, so there's no problem. We
Okay.
just don't want to disturb them. And so if you notice the bend in the back of to the north of the design, that is to allow that area between the white area and the red area to kind of, the gray area in there, to kind of live untouched because that's where the soil is.
This is where the soil is, in here?
Yeah.
And we're just gonna leave it?
Yep,
But it's capped.
it's capped.
It's capped. Okay, and then will there be new soil that needs to be mitigated under the new
If we
construction?
find that, then we'll have to come to an understanding of what we do with that, and more than likely, at this point, it will be removed from the site and taken somewhere.
And would that be done not during, like, would that be a summer project so that it's
It
not
could be.
dust
This
there,
is,
kids and-
Mainly, the soil contamination up here is from all the old mining tailings, so it's lead and zinc, arsenic, and some of those things, which is not a big airborne issue.
Okay.
And they'll wet it when they're removing it, and so it can be removed pretty much
And
anytime.
then is it to OSHA standards then?
Mhm.
Okay.
Everything has to be done to OSHA, and it has to be done. There's also hazardous material standards that have to be conformed to for health, safety, and health.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So the programming, as we talked about, that was done really between September and November. As you know, the architects for the high school and the middle school came on earlier, so they got through the programming a little earlier. Their design services will run through November of this year up until June of 2022 when they finish their construction documents. But the schematic design packages will be done early in January. And so we'll start having some meetings with teachers and some of the other student groups in early January. Construction we're anticipating will start in May of 2022. Occupancy for the first phase will be in August of 23, and then the second phase will move over into 24. And right now we're looking at the phases, I think, splitting kind of through the middle, so we'll build to the north and then we'll build to the south. And actually it won't be that clean because they'll start one, get it going, and then start another one, then finish one, and then finish three. And so the fixed limit of construction cost for this project, which includes the cost of the construction, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, the design fees, is $50.3 million. So then if we move on to the middle school, Ecker Hill, again, this is the existing plan. And the original master plan showed us adding 2 pods to the north of that, I guess you would say, up on the upper portion. And then doing some work with the new gymnasium and then doing some work in the cafeteria. Again, you can see the budget that was projected and the priorities that we were trying to accommodate, which are the same as we talked about previously, which is to combine 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. Where we are now, again, we're expecting the design builder contract before the Christmas break. We are combining 6th, 7th, and 8th grades into the facility. And you can see here on the diagram what I was talking about, where we aren't throwing away that little blue piece that is connecting the red square to the triangle, but we're utilizing that and taking advantage of that rather than setting that aside and getting rid of it. I think it actually really helps the design a great deal because it doesn't limit the existing facility. It actually adds some usable space to the existing facility. Yeah, if you want to just point to it.
Oh, that part.
That space. Yeah, it's one of those areas that you could throw away and build right next to it, but it's square footage that can be used for a variety of things, from storage to other types of things. So I think it was a really good move on their part to kind of say that. You can also see that they are taking advantage of that little triangular area that's between your current road and the church to the north. That is being discussed right now, and Todd Hansen is working with that, with the LDS Church to see about picking that up so that we can use that for some additional parking. So I think everything's coming together really well here. We're looking at a couple of different options still for some of the bus lanes as they talked about yesterday, but I think this is coming together very nicely. Any?
Can I ask you, sorry, do
Sure.
you know kind of where 6th is going to be and where 7th and 8th? I mean, have we gotten that far?
I haven't.
Yeah, that comes
I don't
later.
think they have, well, I think the school knows,
Okay.
but I haven't spent the time to get through all of
'Cause I
that.
think
But I think they're
initially
starting to think about how.
You're
that
saying like
fits.
I
6
think-
to 8's not.
Well, I
combined.
think they're thinking the old wing would be 6, so it's
Yeah.
a little bit separated,
Yeah.
and then the 2 new wings will be 7th and 8th grade, so that there's a little bit more of a transition for
Great.
6th graders as they
I
come
think-
in.
Yeah, I think that's.
That's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I just I don't know which wing is which, and whether it goes 6, 7, 8, or if it goes.
So it goes 6, maybe 7th and 8th. But
Yeah.
this would be the 6th grade wing, the existing.
Great, I like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And again, we're shooting for a 35 or lower EUI. Again, the schedule's pretty much the same because it's the same architect, and so they'll be finished with their schematic design again in January. We again talked about that this morning, and they're prepared to start meeting with teachers and go through the finalizing of that. Construction will start in May, and again, we'll see the occupancy of the first phase in '23, and then the occupancy of the second phase. The second phase in this one will be a lot of the interior space that's existing, because there is some rework of the cafeteria and some of the interior space. So that's when that will come together. So the exterior will go up, the new portion will go up pretty quickly. And again, the FLCC for this is $29.1 million. The master plan for Parley's Park, again, this was the original, and then we were talking about adding on a gymnasium and some additional educational classrooms.
Sorry. I just hit something on my phone that you have.
I bump my watch all the time, and it tells me it doesn't understand.
Sorry about that, I don't know why that popped up.
So, and so VCBO is moving forward with all 4 of the different elementary schools, and so in some of those areas, again, we're adding the pre-K, and this one we're looking at the pre-K classrooms, and again, trying to minimize the disruption to the students as much as possible during the construction, and the EUI of 35 or lower. And again, this is where the elementary schools are struggling a little more than the high school or the junior high with trying to get as low as that 35. And it has to do a lot of it with the size of what we're adding and just the efficiency that can be developed. And so we have a really good engineer, Benyon Mechanical Engineering is taking a really good look at that and trying to give us the best information they can. Construction on this one, again, their design services will end up in September. They're going to start phase 1, however, they'll have an early package, and that'll begin in May of 2022. And then that will run through August of 2023. And so you'll have August of 2023 will be the phase 1. And then phase 2 will start in August of 23 and complete in August of 24. And I believe that the phase that will be phase 1 is the area that has the gymnasium in it. And then I think the phase that is phase 2 is where the classrooms are. And again, the fixed limit of construction cost for this is $10.8 million. For Jeremy Ranch, again, this was an addition that was going to connect to the building and be a standalone condition, and this was going to have the wraparound services. That has, again, moved forward with the wraparound services in pre-K. And again, this one, we're working to try to get to a 35 EUI. The design services, they'll be done with the entire design process around the end of March, and they'll begin construction in May, and it's a pretty straightforward build, and so it'll be done in August of 23. So this is one of those that they've been able to push forward a little faster than what we thought they'd be able to do, so this is very nice that they're able to do that. And it's about $11.4 million for the FLCC. So this, I think, is in good shape. And the plans on this, as you saw yesterday, are pretty far along, and they're moving along pretty well with this one. Same thing for McPolin. That will have an addition to it with the wraparound services. It's basically the same building. We're just repeating it and adding it on. It'll be added on a little differently because the buildings are a little different, and so there'll be some modifications at the connection point. But again, the schedule is pretty much exactly the same, where the design will be done in March, the construction will start in May, and we should have occupancy in August of 23. So This will be really nice to have these two facilities done so quickly.
Yeah.
So does that parking lot bump into current Treasures? Do we have to wait for Treasure to be vacant before this happens?
I don't think so.
It can that bump over?
No.
Treasure's still functioning?
Yeah, so if you look in the design there, this isn't perfect, but you can see the parking area. The two stripes of parking stalls are actually the way they are currently. What's being redesigned is the routing of the buses through, so, not that
Oh.
section, but over to the right. Yeah,
So that's the current Treasure parking right there now?
Yeah, that's the current
Oh,
parking.
I thought you were adding that on and I'm
Yeah,
wondering.
so what you've lost basically is Comstock Lane.
Yes.
And the one side of Comstock is now how the buses will be routed and circulated through the parking area. So that's the idea. And then you have service to the back of McPolling, which is where all the docks are and the utility access.
So the front of the school will have a bus loop, right?
So the front is just the way it is today.
Okay, the buses will go around there. Okay. And drop you
Oh,
off.
I got you.
What's
I
that?
see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the parent drop-off is still the same.
Yeah.
The cursor's floating around right
Yeah.
now, so that, but it's where the buses will peel off, so they'll go over to Treasure to drop off there. And also, we have, two buses that service McPolling. They'll go that route, but they'll stop over on the McPolling side.
So just being a user of this for a very long time as a McPolling mom and as a Treasure mom, that is a big cluster.
Yeah.
Big cluster.
It is.
I would use the second word, I went with that, but we're in a school board meeting. But this is a huge problem with ski traffic coming in, with Sundance traffic coming in, with trying to make that left-hand turn, and guilty, I've sometimes gone through the
That's all.
neighborhood. So I just, as we get into this, I know Treasure's not gonna be around very long, because we're gonna be moving 8th and 9th, but dual entrances, or some other way to enter both schools separately.
Yeah, so if you do a sneak preview,
Yeah.
look at the master plan documents that were put together from GSBS
Yeah.
and what MHTN had worked on. We're really in what we would call a phase one of the campus.
Okay.
There is a bigger vision of what this campus will grow to. Included in that bigger vision is internal circulation that is very specifically designed to address what you're talking
Okay.
about. This phase, we're
Just
getting
get it
we're getting
built
the
and-
classrooms
okay, yeah.
in place,
Yep.
managing traffic as best we can,
Got it.
doing that.
But it's not
priority.
out there.
But we're not all done.
Okay.
That's another day, another discussion, maybe another board that takes it on.
But once 8th and 9th go away and we don't have
Things
Treasure,
change.
that whole thing I just described goes
Yeah.
away, so it's really just dealing with it until
Yeah.
24.
Yeah, a couple
Yeah.
of years.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So, again, this will be done in '23, and the FLCC, or the fixed limit of construction cost, is 11.2.
Sorry, one last question. Learning center staying going? It's going into the high
That
school?
will be that will be the Park City Child Care Center.
Okay,
Because they're being dislocated from the high school as we do all of the design work we saw.
okay. So that'll be the preschool, and the learning center as it is now will go into the high school.
Correct.
Okay, and then finally, Trailside. This addition, again, is a little unique in that it kind of goes off a little to the side. Again, it's trying to make sure we get some of the kindergarten classrooms in it. It's similar to the first elementary school with the classroom layout, but still different. So it's a separate project, more or less. But again, design services should be done in 2023. They're focused on the other three schools first, and then construction will start in May, and occupancy will be in 2024. It's a simple build once they get to it, but they've left this one to occur kind of at the end. And the fixed limit of construction cost for this is $5.4 million. So that's pretty much the update on where we are. I think it's good news. I think we've got two very good teams in Hogan and Hughes and their architects, and I think they're moving forward as quickly as they can. And everything right now seems to be going very, very well. We don't see a lot of issues right now. So I think the decision to go design build was a good one because it puts the contractor in the position of being able to do, as you're saying, manage the supply chain issues, and we're working through a lot of those discussions with them. So,
Perfect.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. Drive safely.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Drive safely.
Oh, thanks, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'll try to stay on the roads.
Yeah, please do.
We will move on to the bond resolution. I move that the Board of Education of Park City School District authorize the issuance of and sale by the board of not more than 79.2 million aggregate principal amount of general obligation bonds and related matters.
I second the motion, or you just moved? So do I move it?
No,
I'm,
yeah, you make a motion.
I make
yes.
So, okay, I make a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than 79.2 aggregate principal amount of general obligation bonds and related matters.
Second.
I'm going to turn it over to Todd for a second.
For discussion?
For discussion.
All right, thank you. So in your board docs, you'll see a very large document. About the first 45 pages is the sum total of the resolution itself. And basically what you have there are all of the terms and conditions. You can really see it as the prospectus that will go out to the bond market when we sell the bonds. So it has all the particulars of what the par amount will be, what the terms will be, what the max interest rate will be. It establishes all of that so that when Stiefel works with us to place the bond in the marketplace, we're able to communicate exactly what it is that we're soliciting and what we're willing to accept on the bond sale. It also identifies the three projects. So it's the high school, Jeremy, and McPullen. Those are the projects that are being funded with the bond proceeds. So that's all in there with a lot more legal jargon. And then there's also a number of attachments that are currently in draft form because that will all get filled in as we progress through this process. The timeline, just so that you're aware of what we're thinking, is that by mid-January we will be going before the rating committees to get a bond rating for the school district, with the intent that by the end of January we would have that in place and we'd be able to market or solicit the bonds. We expect that to happen into January, in the first couple of weeks of February, so that the bonds would be sold kind of in that time frame. So that's what we're shooting for. We think that's a good market timing for us as a school district to introduce those bonds. And then we'll go from there. Also, the term on the bonds is not to exceed 21 million. And these were all in the proposition as it went out. We told the community that we're going to do this for these three projects, not more than 21 years, not more than 79.2 million. So that's what the resolution incorporates. So there's another 120 pages to talk about, willing to jump into all those. But at this point, I think you have a firm enough understanding when you have the documents before you to know where we're headed.
Does anybody have any questions for Todd?
No.
Not at this point.
And if you do, Matt, Doug Dell with Stiefel is here in case you have a question that maybe it comes to you by the end of the meeting. Grab us and we'll put you through what's going on.
All right. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, we will move to policies for adoption. Can I get a motion to approve, to adopt the following policies? Policy 2025, electronic board meetings. Policy 7136, leave. Policy 7165, educator evaluation. Policy 10005, entrance age.
I make a motion to adopt the policies as read.
I second.
Any discussion?
Did we,
I've asked Lori, though there is no, sorry, I'm guessing. If you've heard me feedback, is that what you're asking?
no,
Sorry.
I'm asking on the educator evaluation if that was all done with PCA. I don't think Mary mentioned it, but
She did not mention it, but we talked about it yesterday on the
Okay.
call, and yes, they've been really happy with the participation, and yes, throughout.
Cool, that's it.
Okay.
Do we have any feedback? No. I'll just ask that to you.
Sure.
There you go.
Sorry, I thought that was, all right, so all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that is unanimous. We will move to public comment. Do we have anybody that's here for public comment this evening? Okay. Nope. All right, then we will move on. We have on here a closed agenda, but I don't think that we need to move into a closed session, so I think we're good with that. So we will move to adjourn until our next regular session meeting, which is, I believe, January 18th at 4 p.m.
I make a motion to move to adjourn until our next board meeting on January 18th at 4 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Woo, wow.
That was
We're out.
the quickest meeting ever.